You mentioned the Windy Ridge neighborhood, and you would have known this, but we actually have a professor here at UNC
Is that
Charlotte,
right?
Dr. Yanni Sorensen, who has taken her class into that neighborhood and done a lot of work with them in terms of helping lift them back up. Talk a little bit about that potential partnership between the federal government and universities in general, and where you see, particularly in the work that you do at HUD, where that partnership might take us.
Well, I've worked in housing all my career, and in fact have worked in a university. I studied housing policy at Harvard, and I worked at the Joint Center for Housing Studies there. It's our responsibility in government to make sure we're putting money into investing taxpayer dollars into things that work. And that's always been important at a time when the country is facing a serious fiscal crisis. We have to make sure that we're investing in things that work, and frankly, taking away investment from things that aren't working. And not only do we have a fiscal deficit, I think we have a real trust deficit in the public sector in whether we actually can deliver change for families. And so I think it's particularly important. Research universities like this one have an incredibly important role to play in documenting where things are working and where they aren't. And just a couple examples I would point to. We've made enormous strides on homelessness in this country. Last year alone, we reduced the number of veterans sleeping on our streets by almost 20% in 1 year. Most people don't know that veterans are 50% more likely to be homeless than the average American. It's a tragedy. But we also have figured out, because of our partnerships with research universities, that not only is it a tragedy for that veteran to be sleeping on the street, it's actually more expensive for the taxpayer. It costs typically $30,000 or $40,000 a year for an individual to be homeless, because they use emergency rooms for all their medical care. They end up sleeping in shelters or institutionalized, maybe end up in prison for spells. All of those are public costs that are much more expensive than helping that veteran find decent, safe housing that they can live in permanently rather than being on the street. So it's an example of where, because of the research that's been done, because of the partnership with research universities, we've been able to demonstrate that making investments in ending homelessness actually save lives and save money at the same time. And that's meant that at a time of real partisanship, we've seen a broad bipartisan consensus in Congress that we ought to be investing in these programs. And in fact, at a tough time, investments in HUD's homeless programs are actually increasing. And it's one of the few places in our budget where we've seen increased investments because we've been able to demonstrate that progress.